Hello, and welcome to TechGym number 2. So this is question and answers, weekly thing. I'll review code, answer questions, do live coding, and let's jump into it. So if we share the screen, this week we had a request from Zach. Jest tap snapshot testing, not to do that just yet, but I will play with Jest. And here is, looking at conceptual thinking, how to solve an algorithm. And he suggested this braces one, which is, can you take a string like this and say true if everything closes properly, false if it doesn't close properly? So a nice little coding kata. So that's what I'll have a crack at today. So here we go, from the trenches, some live coding, what's more. I'm going to start off with making a new directory, and inside here, make it a Git repo, make npm. If you're not using Yarn yet, I highly encourage you to check it out. I prefer it to npm. Gives you a lock file, and personally I find it an easier dependency managing experience. So I'm going to be adding in Jest. I think one of the interesting things that I found about Jest is that it's got a very good developer user experience, which is why I think it's gaining so much popularity, and one of the reasons why we're looking at to replace all the testing in the bootcamp. And you can think about user experience or user interfaces like visuals and buttons and widgets, and you can see beautiful UI and ugly UI and so on. But I think as a developer, when you're building libraries, you can also think about UI from the library point of view. So as a developer, how easy is it to use this technology? And it's still a user experience or a user interface. It's just a textual one or one in code. And I find that Jest has got just a nicer UI than what I've seen before. So I've added in that. Let's start to get this into Tmux so I can run my tests and my code at the same time. And so I've made Git, I made npm. Now I want to get my git ignore file up. And here we're going to put node modules in. Check that. Okay, that's good. Now I want to touch, I've called this thing braces. I'm going to just go to braces.js. And the convention of Jest is you just put the same name, but with test after it. And that works for me. So here I'm going to go into braces and braces test. So one of the things about Jest in terms of UI is that you don't really need to require anything. It's just like test something like this. And now if I go, I've got something and I'm going to just go expect true to be true. Now if I run Jest, I should get a passing test. And we're in business. So no require, no imports, and it's just magically getting this stuff in there. So you can sort of they call it a zero configuration testing, which I find is pretty easy to get into. So what I want to do now is let's start to start building a function and testing it. So first thing I want to do is, okay, so I've got to test whether braces match or not. Empty string should be true. It's got no braces in it. It should be happy. So I'm going to do something like, let's call it braces. Let's get braces in here. Now I'm going to expect braces empty string. It's my failing test. Now if I go into my package and I get testing going, just Jest. So technically I don't have to do that configuration, so you can still call it zero configuration, but it's minimal if you want to make it nicer. But what that gives me is now I can just use keyboard shortcuts in my Vim to run my testing in my other window. So I find that that makes me happy. Now, error, braces not a function. Okay, so let's get braces up. So code down the bottom, function braces, and let's export it. Should get a different error. Now let's start to show true. And that was true to be undefined. All right. And so we passed and we're in business. So simple first case. So breaking down a problem like this, like I just want to get started. I just want to load it up, and then I want to start to think about, okay, what's my actual strategy for solving this? So in my head, I'm kind of pseudocoding, and I'm not writing my next test and just blindly going in and saying, okay, let's send it 2 braces and make it pass and naively solving it. I actually want to think of the algorithm that I'm going to use here. And so for doing that, I'm going to start thinking about, well, okay, as a user, how do I know they match? And I kind of see this one, I know this matches that. So I've got a concept that I know this doesn't match because I know this one here needs to be first. And so I'm sort of seeing there's a difference between closing and opening brackets. And now the other thing I'm noticing is that these are all sort of synonyms to each other. Like I kind of just think of these as the same. And I know this one is valid because this one closes inside of the other one. Whereas if it was this, it would be invalid. So there's a sense of the ordering of the opening and closing starts to become important. And when I'm thinking about, okay, that's valid because it's not braces or brackets. That's valid as well because they're not braces or brackets. That's invalid. That becomes valid. That becomes invalid. So what I'm doing here is I'm just playing with the domain and saying, okay, I can see that these are invalid because humans and brains, but I want to write some code which is going to test that for me. So the algorithm I'm sort of starting to see is that if I read through each of these one at a time, and I put something onto the left when I see it, and then I put something else onto it, so here will be opening, and then as soon as I close it, I can remove that. I know it's good. And I see this, and I open it, and I put that onto the stack, pop it then here because it closes, and now I can see, yep, and if I finish with nothing left, everything's opened, everything that is opened is closed at the right position, then it should be valid, and that should work for this. And if it doesn't have any of these special characters in it, like this, it should be true. So I've sort of written some just sample things that I have manually tested in my brain. And here is where I would start to do things like, oh, let's start to test them out a bit more. So if we go test, and let's go call this properly. I'm going to go empty string. And now I'm going to go string without brackets. Oh, no, I called my whole thing braces. Oh, I don't like that. I'm going to change it to brackets. I think it's more accurate. Like this, string without brackets. So right now I'm anxious because I know I busted my code. And if I run my test, it's broken. I'm going to quickly try and swim to the side of the pool and grab hold of something solid, which is code which is functioning and running. So I've called that braces test and JS, and we're going to call that brackets.js, and I'm going to move braces dot test.js, and I'm going to move that to brackets. And it might seem silly to spend the effort renaming stuff at the beginning, but names are pretty important, and they matter a whole bunch. They think a lot about how you reason about code, and I just am a big fan of keeping accuracy in my namings at all times. So here we've got this called brackets. Okay, now I might even rename this one. Okay, so now I should be clear again. I'm not going to worry about renaming my tmux session. That's transient, so it'll disappear as soon as I restart it. Empty string, string without brackets, braces is not defined. Okay, so nearly there. Okay, so we're good here. Now I'm just going to do this. Now it won't change my outcomes, but I'm just starting to work my way through logically. Now I'm going to say test empty brackets are true. So, and here I'm just going to drop in this one. And and I'm going to see that these ones are here. So even though it's not forcing me to write code, and I'm not worrying about sort of strict TDD and just sort of trying to get a job done here, I know that this is a case where, yep, each one of these should be true. And then here, I would expect hanging brackets to be false. And here I might put just singles. So I want this one like that. And then now let's get the opening ones in. I want all these to be false. Okay, so now I should have some failing tests. That as I'm always returning true, these falses should fail on me. And how we're going. Okay, so string without brackets. That is a test error. The order of these parentheses messed up. And then now I should just expect the single brackets to fail. Great. All right, so it's failing how I expect it to do. And now I figure I've got good enough test coverage to start to see, okay, let's see how I can get this algorithm going. So this is what I'm going to pseudocode, which is go through each character of string. If it's an opening bracket, push onto array. If it's a closing bracket and matches last char of array, pop array. So, okay, if I've pushed on a brace and I see another brace, just remove this brace and pretend it wasn't there. If it doesn't match, so then that will be the situation where it's mismatched. I want to return false. And then at the end, if array is empty, return true. So if I haven't pushed on any of these brackets here, then I know that I'm clear. So that's sort of the algorithm that I think will get this done. So let's start to get it going. So string, I want to go through each character of a string. Now I could use a for each, but I'm noticing that I want to return at certain cases here, which means a for each, the return is not going to work for me. So hello, ugly for loop. 0i. Now, one thing I'm going to do, because I've got a lot of tests here, and if I start to console log stuff, it's going to go everywhere. I'm just going to start to limit this a bit. So I'm just going to say, hey, only that test. And again, great UI on Jest. It's behaving a lot like Ava and Tape and other libraries we're aware of. So here, ASDF, yep, looks like I'm getting each character properly. So again, I just want to prove that I'm standing on solid ground with my code. Right now, I know I've got no errors, not passing things, but no errors. And now, this isn't going to be a good test for me here. So while I've got all these other test cases, they're not really useful for me to develop against. So I'm just going to drop in another one, which is mismatched brackets. And let's get a decently sized test in that case here, because if I'm writing an algorithm like this, I kind of just like having something which is a decent size. If we do this, and inside of it, get these ones, and inside of these, and let's just mismatch them. So you can see that, yep, that's not valid. And this is the main one I'm going to test against. So I'm going to start developing my code against just this test. And then I'm going to, that should give me good console logs and debugs and whatnot. So that is gone. I think I'm good here. And now I should at least see all the characters of it. Cool. Okay, so I'm going through, I'm getting a whole bunch of characters like this. Now, so what I want to do is, okay, I've done this one, let's kill it. If it's an opening bracket, push it to an array. So I need a concept of what are my opening brackets, but I'm also going to need to know what brackets match them. So I might do something like const matching brackets. If we make this an object and I go like this, I know that that one, the key is going to be opening, this is going to be closing. Yeah, this should work. Like this. Yep. So I've got the matching brackets here, and that way I know that object.keys of matching brackets is going to be all the opening brackets. So I can do something like if object.keys matching brackets, that gives me all the left-hand side. And here I'm going to go .index of and index of character. If it's greater than or equal to 0, then it should be an opening bracket. And here I'm just going to go console.log character and see if that worked for me. White dog running around at my feet at the moment. Okay, cool. That seems to have pulled out the correct opening bracket, so I know that this test here is good. So again, just console log small step pseudocode, make sure I'm standing on solid ground at each step of the way. And then now, so if it's an opening bracket, I want to push it onto the array. So that means I'm going to need some kind of const, and I'm going to call this opening brackets. This array here, and opening brackets dot push, and let's put the character on it. I'm not going to test that. I don't think there's any logic there that could go wrong. And now that means that if I run this, I should be, oh, Kayla. Puppy's making mayhem. Okay, so if I have this, now that I expect that this will have done it now, else, so if it's not an opening bracket, if it's a regular character, just don't care. Not gonna, it doesn't change anything, I'm just gonna ignore them. But if it's a closing bracket, so object, okay, I want the values. All right, let's use object values. So that's going to give me all the other side of them. And index of character. Similar code, looks like a refactoring target, but I'm not going to worry about refactoring yet. I'm going to worry about making things work. Now I need to check my node. Okay, IMVM list. Going to need 8.1 to get object.values going. Let's set 1.4. And here is where I'm also going to go requires node 8.1. Not going to worry about setting up a thing which forces that, but I'm just going to start to just make a note for myself that, hey, if I want to run this, I'm going to need node 8.1. So let's go back to brackets. Now, opening brackets that I'm pushing. Now, if I'm on a closing bracket, what I want to do here matches the last char of the array, pop the array. Okay, so if that means the last char of opening brackets, if that equals the matching bracket for this one. Okay, so I know I'm on a closing bracket, so I'm going to do something like const matching bracket equals, let's do the other way around. Here I'm going to go matching brackets at, and here I need opening brackets at opening brackets dot length -1. Oh, it's nesting. Okay, so this bit here will give me the last bracket in this one here, and I'm going to check and see that one there. So that's going to give me the one that it should be. Oh yeah. If this equals character, then we're all good. That means if we're not equal to character, they've given me a mismatching bracket, I'm going to return false. And if we're all good, that means I'm going to go opening brackets dot pop. Get rid of the last one. So I've found the thing that matches it. Let's pull it off. And now let's just have a look at for each time through. Console log, and I want to see character, and I want to see opening brackets. Ugly code, but right now I'm just trying to make it work. Okay, so first time through, we can see opening brackets. Interesting how it got open brackets is not defined. Right. Now, character. So if we look at string, okay, here's my string. Now the first time through, opening brackets equals this, and then this is confusing, but that's actually the array part of opening brackets, and I've poshed that onto opening brackets. The next time through, character equals this, and that's been pushed onto opening brackets. Then the next time through, character equals that, and that has been pushed onto opening brackets. So it seems to be going through and hitting the thing properly. So I've written too much code without testing it here. So console.log closing. Oh, wait a second. Maybe it's actually working, and it's just returned false when it's meant to. So, and I'm noticing that it's passed my test. So if I get rid of the only here, because down here it's gone and it said, hey, you shouldn't match. Now, because if this is good code, these ones here, single brackets to be false. Okay, so we know we've got some problems there. Now, so I've got the mismatched brackets, but these ones up here aren't behaving properly. So let's just look at this. Now, these ones, oh, well, I'm not doing anything if I get to the end. So return, if there's nothing in opening brackets, then we're good because we've closed everything that we've shut down. As in, we've closed everything we've opened. But if we, and so that's, yep, so we've closed everything we opened. But here, if the length is more than 0, that means we haven't closed something, which means we've got a hanging bracket, which means these ones here should be there. Okay, so that passed that here. green at the moment. And so again, code's pretty ugly, pretty hard to reason about. So this is where I'd start to refactor. So if it's closing bracket, pop the array, did that. If it doesn't match, return false. If array is empty, return true. So that's the same thing. And we're getting rid of that there. So I've got some things. Now I'm just going to throw a few more test cases at it, just to make sure we're sort of robust. And here, so let's change that one like this. And I'm going to get my happy case going here. Test matching brackets to be true. I want that to be true. Now here I'm just going to say, hey, maybe it's I'm going to test that. Throwing in random characters doesn't break anything. Now this one, let's see. That kind of deal. Yeah, so passing all these test cases, I've got empty strings, I've got simple brackets matches, single things, some more complex mismatches, and some more complex matches. So I'm pretty comfortable that this test cases are thorough enough, and this code is now good. So now I'm going to go into refactoring time. So long function, lots of chaining and nesting in here. The first thing I'm going to do is let's make this easier to read about. Pull these conditionals out and make them functions. That's just a bit of an easier way to get things going. So I'm going to go, this first one is basically saying, is this thing an opening bracket? So is opening bracket is a better name. I'm writing a function using the extract function thing here. And let's get that out of it. Okay. So that's the first sort of refactoring I'm going to try for. And then I'm going to do a similar one down here. After every refactoring, I can start to go here. And this is what I like about my setup here is that the tests take a while to run. I hit enter and I start moving on to the next thing, assuming it's going to work, but I'll catch it if it doesn't. So is closing brackets. Okay. Like this. Okay, so my object of keys, object of values, pretty similar, but I don't care too much for now. Now, what's this condition doing? If matching brackets, opening brackets. So it's basically saying if last opening bracket doesn't match. So that's sort of like is last opening if last opening bracket doesn't match. Again, I don't care if it's perfect. I just want to get a start going here. Last opening bracket doesn't match. Okay, let's change that to mismatched. And so this is going to need opening bracket and it's going to need character. Yeah. Now, okay, matching brackets, that's global. So again, not perfect code, but better. And with refactoring, it's always just about making things better. So if I read through this, for each character, if it's an opening brackets push the character, and I can see it's here. Else if closing brackets, here's the character. Last opening bracket mismatched, with those save files return false. Otherwise, pop it and return the length is greater than 0. That's not, so some of the things is this function here is a bit long, but it is my core algorithm. Can't see any super easy ways of tightening that up. I'd probably call this done at this stage. And I'll go here. Oh, I haven't done anything, have I? Then here we're going to go something like initial solution. So that's the way I would break down this problem and solve it. Now, I'm not super satisfied. Like it, I don't know. There's something about this thing here. I think it's the size of the function I don't like. We're talking about this many lines. If I try and break this down, because opening brackets, I'm reading and writing to it, like here we're pushing to it, here we're popping from it, then I'm going to have to, I could make this a function and give it opening brackets. Yeah, I guess so. So here we can do something like scan character, scan test character. And I'm going to do, I need to give it opening brackets like that. This kind of thing. Not returning anything, it's just doing work. So that's, now it's made me feel better for each character, test character. But one of the things I don't like about this, so test character, I'm testing, it's not a good name because I'm actually messing with the opening bracket thing. Oh, and I've broken something. Well, that's exciting. So now single brackets to be false. Okay, this is my last working code, I think. So this one works, but now if I look at this, that's all in line. I've got opening brackets, character, opening brackets. So if I look at the refactored version, test character, I give it a character, I give it the opening bracket. And this one is saying it's failing on me, single brackets to be false, which means that one of these tests up here, don't you love test suites? That means one of these ones is with respect to false, but it's returning true, which means opening brackets isn't being pushed yet. So that means that the push is, so here you could start to do like wincing everywhere at the moment. That's busted everything. Now, and here's where it's the whole thing of like, okay, I'm passing down something, I'm manipulating it in here, but this thing up here depends on it for its core logic. So that's what I don't like about this whole approach. And you could start to do it where I very accurately create a new opening brackets thing and I clone the old one and I return it back and do a pure functional style. But I think that would just add a bit more complexity. I'm just going to call it down where it was. Right here. I know it works, it's a bit ugly, but that's enough to start with. Now, and that's just one way to solve it. Like if I thought about how can I do the same job with a different way. I remember in Zach's one, he mentioned solving it with regular expressions. So maybe I'll just try that as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call this one move brackets, and here we're going to go brackets scan. This way. Reminds me of that, there's two hard things in computer science: naming things, cation validation, and off by one errors. But naming things, there's so much bloody time to try. Is this a good name? Is that not a good name? All right. So brackets, that's there. So now that I've moved that, I'm going to quit it, and let's actually get this in here. And let's try and solve this in a different way. Now, the great thing about this is like, whoa, look at this test suite. Isn't that beautiful? Now I can just start to do, say, I'm going to go here, function, brackets, take a string. Let's get some of them right at least. And especially for a card like this, you can just keep cranking out files and saying, hey, let's solve it with objects, let's solve it with whatever, pure functions, let's solve it with regular expressions. And now I'm going to get this. And I should get some failing, some passing. All right, yep. So now I'm going to think about what's a different algorithm that I could use to solve this. So if I was going to use regular expressions, and I'm looking at all my test cases up here, let's get rid of this stuff. Not all that. Okay. So I've got these. How could I use a regular expression to solve this? So I'd have to start to say, okay, a regular expression needs to have some kind of concept of appropriately matching brackets. So if I said, so I could test to say, all right, this works because it's matching something, and inside of it is not its own thing, which is unmatched. So if you look at this one here, the reason this one is invalid is because inside of it is an unmatched thing of a square bracket. If it was an unmatched parentheses or an unmatched brace, if it was an unmatched brace or an unmatched square bracket, it'd definitely be incorrect. But if it was something like this, you wouldn't know if it was correct or not just by looking at these three characters. It would depend if there's another parentheses along the right here that made that correct or incorrect. Whereas you could tell this one was correct because there's no opening on the left-hand side, so it's going to get complex pretty quick. Let's just start to have a look. And here it might be something like, I think an algorithm that could work is find something which doesn't have any other braces inside of it, like square brackets. So if it's like this, yeah, that's going to be, hang on, that one's, I've messed it up. Oh, no, there's a mismatch. See, that's why computers rock. I forgot that mismatch there was not right. Okay, so this one here, an algorithm could be, go through and find opening and closing square brackets and strip them out. So anything which has got opening and closing square brackets, strip it out as long as it doesn't have any hot characters inside of it. So hot characters are going to be opening or closing of any bracket. That means this one wouldn't be stripped out. If you did it first with the braces, so we went like this, okay, let's pull that out. And it could pull out that one, it doesn't have anything in there. Oh, and now we can just do recursion. Now pull out anything which is braces, square brackets, or parentheses, which has nothing inside of it. Pull that out, and pull that out. And now we can pull this one out. And now we have an empty string, so we know we're clear. So I think that a recursive keep pulling out things at the lowest level that match, and that is still valid. That match, I think, that could work. So here I'm going to write that up. I'm going to go like, go through and strip out any brackets without brackets inside of them. So this would be each three styles. Then I would do something like if, and now then I would say call brackets. again with new string. Now that's recursion. Recursion means I need a guard statement, or this will just go forever. Right now, this will just keep calling itself. If new string is same length as old string, either I didn't strip out any brackets, I haven't changed the thing, which means finish, or I've got to an empty string. So that means return true. And now I probably need something else. If I can't just return true here, what I need to do is if new string, or string, they're both the same now, contains any brackets, return false. So if it's got any bracket character at all, it means there's some kind of mismatching. And I reckon this will solve it for us. All right, so go through and strip out any brackets with braces and times up. And so here I need a regular expression. So I'm going to do something like const pattern. Now I want to have a thing. So let's just do a regular expression for that. Now I know I can't do that because that's regular expression code. So I'm going to strip it out. So that means just find anything with brackets. Now dot star would be like match anything, but I don't want dot. I only want to match things which aren't hot characters. So match anything which is not a brace, and match anything which is not that, and one or more of them. Now I also think I want to match anything which is not parentheses, because I only want to match the lowest level things like that. So now it's match parentheses as long as they've got none of these characters inside of it. And that means I can do something like a strip out. That means I'm going to need to do a replace. So I'm going to go const new string. So this is going to be the or stripped or new stripped. I'm just going to go new string. You can rename it later. That's going to equal string dot replace, and with the pattern. So I'm going to say, hey, does it have that? Now replace the pattern, and if so, I'm going to replace it with nothing. So now if I repeat this for braces and square brackets, that should go through and strip out the right thing. So here, I'm going to do something like function remove parentheses string, and thank you, Pomodoro. I'm loving the 30-minute sessions. Now here, we are going with like that. So I'm just going to go, that's my pattern. And I'm going to go return string dot replace, like this. And now if I go something like const new string equals remove string, now I can do the same thing for the other two, sorry. So we're going to remove the braces. That's here. No, this one's not going to be braces, this one's going to be square brackets. So remove square brackets as long as I don't have anything hot inside of it. Same thing with braces, same thing with parentheses. Oh, I could probably do one regular expression, but then I'd have to tell it that only match parentheses with parentheses, or braces with braces, or no, screw that. It would get really long and complex. I like this way. I think it's going to be simple to read. Parentheses. So here I'm going to start with a string. Not already done that one. So here I'm going to go like this. Now I'm going to be overriding new string here. Did I mess up my naming? I did. here I want to make this one. Okay, now I don't want to do them on string because if it's pulled out one of them, I can pull them all out and do that. Okay, so this should strip them out. So let's just console log string, new string. See if that's working. So run tests. Assignment to a constant variable. Yes, you are correct. I apologize. Okay, so here I'm seeing this one. Look at that. So that has pulled out this and it's matched it with nothing. This was a hanging one, so it didn't do it properly. But if we look at this one here, it's got rid of my braces and my square brackets perfectly. So the first pass through, it's reduced it down. This one has, is that reduced? Yeah, it's reduced the braces here. And but it didn't reduce the braces here. So that means that, oh, it's only doing one match. So I think I can just make this more efficient by doing it globally. That works in JavaScript. So this flag here, without it, it would say only replace one thing. Now I think on this one, yep, that's gone and matched that one. And then, oh, because braces is before square brackets, it's gone even further. Yeah, it seems to be pulling things down. And this one here hasn't been matched, which is good. I'm feeling happy. So we're making progress here. So go through and remove them, done that. So if newString.length equals string.length, so obviously it hasn't, because I'm not inserting anything, that means it definitely has busted out from it. That means that it hasn't matched anything. So we're either empty string or invalid. So I would do no, it could be not an empty string in the case of the ASDF up here. This one up here means that I can't just see if it's equals 0. I have to actually say, does it have any brackets inside of it? So if I haven't changed anything, if newString.match, another regular expression, so I want any of these things. Okay, let's go parentheses. Oh, and I only want one of them to fail. So that's there, braces, squares, close, close. Okay, so if that matches, I'm going to return false, otherwise I'm going to return true. Return not match. So then if it doesn't match, then, so if I have reduced something, I need to run this again. Return bracket. Oh, I don't like the version. And now, where's that pass, that test? There you go. So a recursive solution. Now, if I look at this, so that's the advantage of like, hey, test, I get to reuse them. So it's a bit quicker to write, so I didn't have to do that. But also, oh, I think I like that code a lot more. Pretty clear to read. Remove the parentheses, remove the braces, remove the square brackets. If the length is not the same, return it doesn't match this. So return true if it doesn't have any of these things in it. Otherwise, call yourself again. Yep, that feels good to me. I think this is actually my preferred solution. So if I look at bracket scan here, all right, immediately I've just got so many more characters to read in that first string. This would be more efficient. Well, actually, would it? Depends on the implementation of regular expressions. So this one, I know you'd have to run some benchmarks to see. I suspect this one will be more efficient because it's going to end as soon as it hits the thing. Whereas this one is constantly scanning and updating and replacing. And so there'd be often the more efficient solutions are more ugly. This one's okay, but I like this one a lot more. So yeah, hopefully that's useful. That is, let's go back to here and I'm going to stop the share. Yeah, hopefully that's useful. That's just me showing a couple of ways that I would solve this complex problem. And yeah, hope you're enjoying TechGym and you're learning. I will be starting another check-in of rose thorns and bananas on Monday. And then next week, hit me up with any questions or demos. And I saw a lot of people wanting to do Vue and Angular and different front-end frameworks. So I'm thinking about perhaps making a challenge, which is build one thing in several frameworks. I'll go and get this up in a GitHub repo. So if you want to have a crack at solving the basic challenge, that you can do so and share it with other people. And yeah, keep learning, have fun. Remember what my surfing instructor said, that basically it doesn't matter how much progress you're making in your learning. All that matters is if you're having fun. Because if you're having fun, you'll keep doing it. If you're not having fun, you're going to stop. So make sure your learning is fun. All right, take care.